And you seem to be contrasting these two different types of lives, the life of production, the productive life versus the contemplative life, and that there's a different sort of speed, the like speed of producing, speed of doing versus the contemplative life. And I think we all know well the speedy life, if we can call it that. And I was wondering if you could describe a little bit what constitutes the contemplative life other than slowing down, and maybe what are the conditions that give rise to such a life?
Well, sometimes what gives rise to such a way of life, or at least a facsimile of it, is outer circumstances. You simply can't go out. You can't be working. You can't be going out for entertainment and so on. But that's just the outer. And again, if we're simply forced into solitude, social distancing, quarantine, and so forth, then how we spend that time is entirely up to us. And if we've never experienced that for any sustained period, it can lead to loneliness, frustration, distraction, feeling ill at ease, anxious, and depressed. And so this is kind of like solitary confinement. In prisons, that's known as a severe form of punishment. But we can take this, and so the contemplative life then, first of all, is voluntary. You can't force somebody to go into the contemplative life any more than you can force somebody to meditate. And so those who choose the contemplative life see, I think this is something universal, that there are indeed two types of happiness. And this has been known by us, by Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, been known by Buddha, Zhuangzi, St. Augustine, and so forth and so on. And that is in the American Constitution, I believe it is, Declaration of Independence, that we have the right to pursue happiness. I never really liked that phrase that much, pursue happiness. It sounds like a greyhound running around in circles chasing an iron bunny. And if he caught it, then he would get electrocuted by the iron bunny, which wouldn't taste good in the first place. Happiness is really not something to be pursued, although we often think it is. The three jewels of hedonia, three jewels of hedonic pleasure, mundane pleasure are, I would be happy if I just had more money. I'd be happy if I just had more influence. I'd be happy if I just had more respect and appreciation and reputation and status. So the three jewels, wealth, power, and prestige, and thinking that somehow those will really deliver the goods. And this is the great datura, the great drug of samsara, that never satisfies it, but always gives us one more hope. Oh, but if only I had that, another spouse, another partner, another job, another place to live. And so seeing the futility of that no matter how much we have, we can all check in the internet. We are doing it right now. Who doesn't know immensely wealthy people who are just getting by on antidepressants and maybe don't, and then just commit suicide. And equally extremely famous people, celebrities, people with tremendous power, and yet where's the happiness? So, the evidence is in, and seeing that's all you get is temporary, transient pleasure, which turns out to be never satisfying. For as long as you may live, it will be never satisfying. But the sages of humanity, East and West, religious and non-religious, have recognized there's another whole dimension of well-being, in Greek called eudaimonia, in Buddhism called authentic well-being, samyak sukha. And so this tends to be, I know for myself, I've spent more than 5 years in solitary meditation, 40, 50,000 hours in meditation over the last 50 years. And it's been a major thing that I don't meditate in order to get more hedonic pleasure, to become famous or have money or sensual pleasures, influence and so forth. It's just, it's a bad fit. And so the aspiration to experience a sense of genuine, satisfying, sustainable well-being, and not only for oneself, but for everyone one cares about, and hopefully that is everyone. I think this is a fundamental motivation, whether one's a theist or non-theist, whether one is deeply religious or not. This is something that is unifying, this principle, this theme, the ideal of genuine well-being that is rooted in ethics. Ethics, very simple ethics, nonviolence and benevolence. Whatever our worldview, nonviolence and benevolence, it's unifying. And on that basis, cultivating the mind, cultivating inner peace, composure, mental balance, empathy, samadhi, powerful meditative concentration, mindfulness, cultivating empathy, loving kindness, compassion, cultivating the mind, and finding that if you're sitting in solitude and if you've cultivated your mind well, then a level of eudaimonia, of genuine well-being, flows right from the very nature of your mind itself, as it does from a profoundly ethical way of living. As the Buddha himself said, the initial level, the primary level of genuine well-being is a sense of well-being of having a clear conscience, knowing that we really have abided by the principles to the best of our ability, principles of nonviolence, of at least don't harm with our body, speech, and mind, and wherever possible, act with benevolence, with care, with compassion. A sense of well-being comes from that. A deeper sense of well-being comes from, in solitude, cultivating the mind as it's your back 40 acres. This is a field, it's fertile soil. All it's waiting for is the mulch and the sunshine and the water and the seeds, and sow the seeds of a bountiful harvest. And our minds are the field. Our way of life is the field in which every day, whether we're living in a very socially engaged, productive way of life, producing things, or whether we're hermits who are spending years or decades in solitary retreat, in contemplative solitude, we can all cultivate at least the baseline, this sense of well-being arising from nonviolence and from benevolence. On that basis, all of us, regardless of worldview, we can cultivate our minds. After all, as you know, Daniel, the Sanskrit term that we translate generally as meditation is bhavana, and it means to cultivate. So I really feel everybody should be meditating, in the sense of, if you're not cultivating your mind, what are you here for? Just to get more money or more sensual pleasures or produce more stuff? And so cultivating, and then the highest form, and this is a universal statement. It's there in Augustine, it's in Buddha, it's all over the place. And that is the highest form of eudaimonia, of genuine well-being. It comes from knowing reality as it is. Knowing yourself as you actually are. Knowing the actual nature of the mind. Knowing the relationship of mind with the rest of the natural world. The highest bliss, the greatest sense of well-being, comes from the deepest experiential insight into knowing reality as it is. That's a contemplative truth, but it's not a scientific truth. There are many brilliant scientists over the last 400 or 500 years who've made incredible discoveries, breathtaking, such genius, such ingenuity, and discovering major aspects of reality in physics, chemistry, biology, and so on. And yet, no sign of eudaimonia. And that's because these insights are outwards, which can be very good for developing technology, very good for enhancing our mundane well-being, our physical health, prosperity, and so forth. But science really was never designed to help us cultivate genuine well-being or meaningful lives. So we shouldn't blame it for not delivering goods that it was never designed to deliver. Science has great strengths, but this is not one of them. How to live an ethical way of life, a meaningful way of life, and how to cultivate and experience deeper and deeper levels of genuine well-being. And this is what Dharma is for. And the essence of Dharma is the contemplative life. And so now's the time for the contemplative life. Now's the time individually to celebrate.